I am a 17-year-old girl and have not been contacted by my mom in over 10 years. I was recently reached out to. At the age of 7, she gave away for adoption. Luckily, I found a family who could take me. Just so you can follow what happened better, my original biological mom will be Megan, and the parents I grew up with will be mom and dad in this storyline. Megan had me with my actual dad when she was probably 20 years old. She dropped out of the college because she was pregnant with me, but my biological father finished his education, and they were married shortly after he graduated. He was diagnosed with leukemia when I was 3 years old, and died just after my 7th birthday. Just because my father has now died does not mean I lost him in any sense of the word, and quite frankly, that process had begun long before I give up my custody. Megan sold me, and then within 24 hours of my dad dying, I moved in with a family. Even today, with 10 years under the bridge since then, I remember it as vividly primus yesterday. I felt angry and bewildered by what was happening. I recall being told by many that I was going to be okay, and my father is in a better place anyways, but all I wanted to do was find out how he felt. He was pretty sick, but there he would be whenever I wanted to see him. Even after his death, I was not allowed to say goodbye. I hardly had time to digest these things when my new family arrived at the scene a day after my dad passed away. These people, my mom said, are going to take care of me for a few days. But days changed into weeks, and weeks turned to months, then years. I waited for my mother to call me. I cried a lot at first because I felt my mother and family had abandoned me. A couple of weeks after my mom and pop had me, my real grandparents showed up to see me. I have been contacted by them since I was too young to know back then, but when I turned 14, they could no longer dodge my endless questions. Because I was adopted, and as such, really wanted to know what had happened with my birth mother. I wondered why all of this had taken place, because I could distinctively remember getting along just fine with my birth parents when I was small. Megan took the news of her biological father getting leukemia as well. Fate had it in for us. My grandparents and my mom and dad told me what was up. She was with my stepfather, but instead of going home to be there for him and mend the marriage, she started sleeping around on her uncle. That was scary enough as is, but we didn't ultimately learn about it until 6 months prior to my father's death. By that time his health was so terrible, the affair had also been exposed. My uncle and Megan never told him about it. When he broke up with that woman, Megan would hunt my father down. She decided when all was said and done, she needed to be around him. Megan and my uncle went to confront their affair to the parents. My grandparents were disgusted, but thought better of speaking in front of their wounded son. They didn't want him to have known any of this. He were going through a hard time as it was. Not long after, around the same time, my uncle and Megan spilled the beans to my grandparents about the affair. They announced they did not want a part in raising, so discussed putting me up for adoption. It is the choice Megan stood by. What I remember her saying to me was, she had been way too young at the time that Elle was born and hadn't wanted to be a mother. And she can't now, and has let me be, due to pressure from her parents for a grandchild. Conclusion: her parents saved her from leading a very different life. I was not wanted in the first place, and without a father, she did never want anything to do with me, so I would have went off either way to a children's home. I left things at there, wound up so tightly that they couldn't possibly let me go away while Dad was alive. It would be the answer a couple of years later, when he died. After that, they made my mom and dad come get me. It was a surprise to my adoptive parents, but they wanted one more child so that their family could be whole. They had been trying for a baby again since then, but it was too hard on my mom. My parents just had to wait too long for me. I must be already too far gone. They hoped someone much younger needed the parent outreach. They were not going to have them slip away at their present location, put a block on any and all contacts with adoption agencies. So in the first place was a cousin of my mom's who is friends with Megan. They knew they needed to rescue me of that sort, and have come across my way. Straight to my mom, no agencies needed. It was mostly because the busybody Megan, who got it in her mind when offered me that Bitch, we know I had trouble getting anyone to adopt a 7-year-old from my agency, so fine. Let them have me. They interviewed her 4 months before my dad died. 2 weeks after he passed, it was official. Wearing Miu Miu pre-fall 2010, hood and yoke velvet dress, check shawl, monk vest, film camera, clutches. Jason and I were saying that after my dad died, my mum and dad thought I'd go stay with Megan for a days or something. Then they just sent me home the next day. Read. Found out that indeed, other people knew. Megan had put me up for adoption, and I thanked the heavens that these guys were picked to be my dads. Most adoptions are of younger children, so I was lucky to be placed with such a great family. My mom and dad love me. My older brother has all he could hope for with a little sister. But I am one of those very lucky people that has 4 sets of grandparents in real life, so you can imagine how spoiled I got as a child. None of us kept in touch with my uncle or Megan after Dad's death. They never even came to his funeral, that my grandparents on my side planned. I mean, everyone is going to be there because it sucks, and for me was like Groundhog Day at the time. My grandparents figured it would be best for me to acclimate myself in my new surroundings until they reintroduced themselves, once learning why I was surrendered, and Megan interred, not a permanent part of my life. I thought I would feel excluded, or at least a little annoyed, but mostly I was relieved that she basically confirmed the fact that good thing I did not spend my life with her. I found my way to people who actually liked me. I turned 17 earlier this year, and in a few months, I will be off to college. I don't even give about Megan or my uncle as to what have they been doing. However, for the last few days, I have found it impossible not to think about them. She had messaged me on Instagram, and we agreed to meet up and talk things through. Since I have a public account, it is not hard at all to locate me. At first, I did not even know why she was contacting me after a long period. So I asked her why she wanted to suddenly be my friend again, but not before inquiring about a few details. Sent me a long message, full of emotion that those years had passed, but that she still hated herself for giving me away. She put her commitment to my uncle before us, her children. That she knew it was not her place to make me come back as a daughter, but wanted at least that I know she is not all wrong here. Her only sin was having gotten into so much too young, not understanding the downside of all these commitments. She was under too much stress, hence why she made many wrong decisions. Still, she never felt sorry she'd carried me. My family may have been long calling it, but she was simply not built to be a mother. She had wanted to make it up with me. I thought it over, and I finally agreed, purely out of curiosity. I did not tell my parents or grandparents. I met that one myself, just for giggles. Little did I know how many people want to just make peace with me, mighty, and most of all MHM for wanting only that in the first place. She needed my help. I should have known that, but I have a bad habit of thinking everyone is good at heart, with the exception being Megan. But we still had lunch, 2 days ago. She first appeared to me to be very friendly and kind. She attempted to justify her long story, saying that it was completely out of my control. She had no choice but marry him since their parents insisted so. Drop out from university after marriage and become a full-time mom for me. The truth is, she did not want any of them, but was forced into because her parents wanted. That's what she divorced her for, a few weeks after he told them the news. This is the reason she cheated. She did not regret it because she thought that my uncle was her soulmate. She was happy to have him because she has been happily married with him for 8 years. She was in tears as she discussed the situation with her marriage and brought up my uncle. It's one of the reasons she sought me out. I thought she wanted me to help her make up with my parents and his. The woman who put me up for adoption, passing them over without a word for 10 years. They both have been fine with it a while ago, but my uncle started fighting Megan every single time. He yearned to reunite with his parents, but he knew that they would be unable, even if their hearts did guide them back together. He was blaming Megan for some reason, as he says that if she hadn't been so quick to give me up, maybe I wouldn't have gone sour. Every solution she had in mind was to somehow get me speak things out with my grandparents and make them settle differences between him, her, as everything else failed. If only she could save her marriage from crumbling, perhaps. She had been fighting with my uncle a lot these past few weeks, but she began to like in that moment of desperation. I never made a bigger mistake in my life than going to that woman. It was obvious she did not mean to truly apologize or make things right, even when it was about saving her marriage, and she only come to me because I had been doing so. And be even selfish to dig her out. Hell no, I wouldn't want to do that. After listening to her, I admitted that she was not going to get me with crocodile tears. Now I was headed for the door, but she said something to me along the lines of, had I been in her situation, then it would have made more sense. She claimed to be a mother who was shoved black into her body when she knew it wasn't something she had the mind for. Yet I have been forcing myself thinking of and doing what could make me such. If I couldn't see that because my family had brainwashed me into behaving as they did, then the truth of what those same people were day in and out. Well, the first thing that really upset me was she only mothered me for 6 or 7 years, and during my life we had plenty of active mothers. I know my grandparents did not tell her to leave college. That was something she decided on. Many times they reminded me that I was born because my mother decided to be a parent. Only they told her to have me first, and then take it from there, misinterpreting this as pressure by them. So if you had to choose who to believe, those two or my grandparents. Chances are I am going with Grammy and Gramps. I said she should sell her baloney to someone who was dumb enough to buy it, but I wasn't. When she was apologizing and telling me what really happened, I told her that nothing of those words came true, yet still at my end, sending numerous calls and messages to get hold on the truth. Instead, she tried to solicit help for her, thereby detracting from the weight of her apology. She told me to help her, as if I owed it to her, even though we were not going out. It was my mom who raised me, not her. And I exited the restaurant and returned to our home. When I got home, she sent me a voice note crying. I knew she was still in the restaurant, though, because of some background sounds that I could make out. It did nudge my guilt slightly, though, because you would have to be quite upset in a public area for that weeping, I think. In any case, she was crying and telling me that it was a really bad thing for me to say we had no relationship. Regardless of what had transpired, she was my blood, and I her child. But despite everything, she still thought of me as her daughter. I have no response to her sake. She just really isn't like a mother to me anymore, and I don't care that it makes me sound horrible for saying so. My mother hasn't been my real mom in 10 years. Her crying on the phone, I feel messy and torn up inside. Not even to this day have I been able to block her. She is no mother to me, but she remains the human being who are tied up with my own. Aita. For telling my biological mother, I no longer consider her my mom. Edit. Hi. I hope you read my post. It is very clear I have not told my family back-end remix split. I doubt they would agree with me going to see Megan, and so I did not tell them until after my decision was made. It is time I pay them back, and I will for sure tell them about it. This time, however, I just wanted it to be a decision that I reached on my own. Also, considering I was supposed to be a decoration on my father's arm, and the fact if did tell them, they would have probably locked me in some tower, so no boy meets girl. They all hated her, and justifiably so. Hell, I probably just wanted some closure, which is why in the first place, went to meet with her. I don't know what I was expecting. She was going to apologize. I just wanted her to answer me, one last time. Her text ignited a powder keg of emotions in me, and I suppose that crazy cycle did the rest. Whatever it is, that I did go to meet her and it's done. You know, if I could go back again, I probably would not do it differently. I just sought closure, and now I have it. I don't regret what I did. You just have to say, fuck everybody and live your life the way you feel is right. Mistake or not, it would be your mistake, and that is what I think. Update 1. I told my family that I had visited Megan, and as expected, they were clearly very angry. Last week I met her. A couple of days ago she kept texting me and calling so insistently that eventually had to block her, with repeated messages and calls asking for opportunity to explain herself. I didn't even know what she was going to say, and I knew it wasn't worth finding out. That one meeting let me see she was okay, and it gave my heart the feeling of completion I needed. She was not there really willing to talk things through and make amends. She called me back because she needed my help. That is the only thing as to why she calls. Anyways, I did not wanted to speak with her, and well, it was about time I informed my family of the meeting. Today I called Mum and Dad, as well as both grandparents, to get them for a chat. My parents naturally were pissed off that I had gone behind their backs and disappeared without telling them where or who with. However, they still seemed to get it. And the worst part was, it hurt my grandparents. I got yelled at for it, and just listened to them because I had earned the respect of what they said. I should be the one to talk first. For the most part, they were just afraid she would brainwash me and paint them as villains, which was expected because they knew my mom. By this time, we had already finished dinner, and we were all ready to leave by the end of it, so I told them that I only met with Issue 7 Beauty for some closure. I did not think everyone would understand right away why I thought this, but that was something that I had to do, and so, just as blankly, if you will, announced it. The only thing that troubled my conscience was the fact I did it on their back. I told them I would never lie to their face again, and everyone seemed satisfied with that. Our conversation then moved on to why Megan had asked me over, and what she said about my uncle trying to make up with his parents. The only thing that we could all agree upon was there had to be more going on than what meets the eye. If she was still trying to bit and claw her way into my life, that must mean there were problems on the home front, perhaps some form me taking pity or finding a placement. Megan had mentioned she felt her marriage was in trouble and appeared very agitated over the phone and also during our meet. My grandparents figured she was telling the truth about my uncle being mad at her. We won't say anything because that's really none of our business, truth be told. My grandparents were explicit about that. They told me that as soon as they heard my uncle and Megan make public their intentions to be a couple, while Dad still clung helplessly through his illness, no longer did they consider them family. The last straw was when my mother, without even talking to them, just gave me away, and didn't give time for their side of the story. Thank goodness my adoptive parents were nice to keep them around. In short, Megan is blocked now. She told me I'd never be talking to her again. Of course not, because she had killed herself, but carry on. I mean, I know it was very important for her to get a hold of me, because she had started begging through the last few messages, telling about how horrible her marriage is and so on. She needed me, now more than ever. I felt so guilty setting all of that aside, but really, what is she expecting from me? I doubt I could even get my grandparents to talk bro her or my uncle, let alone do anything, bind them in holy bliss of embarrassment. What she said is perfectly logical, for I would not write them off immediately like that as well if I was in their shoes, and voila. It's completely fair on my side to ban my interactions with her. She can always create new accounts and try again, but that is not going to work. Therefore, I have made up my mind that if she ever attempts to contact me again, I will simply tell her no. If the harassment persists, I'm going to tag her. I remember hearing through the grapevine about different ideas my grandparents probably had on why he would call them after all these years. They were wondering that it was possible that they might be in some kind of financial trouble, and no one from our family had called them. If you ask what the hell they got up to all that time, well, fuck knows. They still live in the city and do something. But what? We don't know. She was a stay-at-home mom with me when we lived together, but I don't know what she does now. Well, at least now I know that if Megan and my uncle are trying to make peace with them because they have hit the bottom of a financial dosh, then I'll definitely tell this bitch/asshole, etc., that as far as their conversation is concerned in less than others would, but whatever. If that is not the most revolting human behavior, calling your daughter after 8+ years to ask for money. It is literally one of the cheaper things people can do. I mean, I hope so if this is true, and she gets exactly whatever was coming to her. Update 2. So, she decided to contact me again today. It had been around 10 days since I blocked her on all platforms, and after a week of nothing from her, one day turned to 2, which turned into 3 without anything. I have no idea how, but she actually managed to learn where I study. I suppose that is why we should not give out our personal info on public platforms. We learned our lesson the hard way. No matter, so I was coming back home today from school, and guess who walks up to me at the last second as I'm on my way out? So a block away from school, near where it gets really hustly and bustly with the crossing guards, which is good because I don't live that far. So when teachers give me family life lessons, I say sure, Godzilla literally has to build his cave, just dorm. She arrived in her car and was shouting at me to get in. So I said, I am not going to get in your car. You could be a homicidal maniac. Then I said, if you try to put on a scene at all here or something like this, and she feeds her ego with that, then we should start screaming right now, in the middle of street, I will end your shitty show right away. She said she wasn't trying to fight me or bother me. She only wanted to reach me, make peace with herself and her life. The last time we met, everything had gone wrong, and she just wanted to make it right. She knew that I believed everything she said was a lie, and would assume it was all an act. She, however, wished to communicate me that it was not true, and she really loved making everything back up with me. I could hear in her voice how desperate she was, and for what, I do not know. Not like I should have felt sorry for her, just pissed off. So I said, fuck it, get out my face. I wanted nothing to do with her. And then her colors began to resurface. For the fact that she was doing a great job at pretending to be sorry, and really wanting it this time around with me. I'm damn proud of myself for not falling into her trap again, right after what has happened before. Well, I told her to back off, and she just lost it on me. You fucking cunt, she said through gritted teeth, as though she was putting in a lot of effort to speak nicely before that. But now, if I wanted, depending on how things went from here, he would see to it personally there were mistakes made, and my life fucked up. The lady literally threatened me, and was like, you better watch your back. I just found it hilarious, because what was she going to do? As she continued to curse me, I kept walking, and eventually with one final finger up sign as well, away in her car. I was so relieved. When I finally made it back to my room, and relayed the information on the phone call that evening with my parents in attendance, we all gathered around once again. I think we can get a restraining order since she has threatened me. We assume that is what will happen, and I have no beef with it. Honestly, I would like that just so she wouldn't haunt me anymore. Update 3. My parents filed a restraining order against Megan not 2 days ago. She had been served and lured only made my uncle decide to finally reach out his family. Of course it was money, just like they said all along. They were running together a confectionery the last years, but lately it was not good on business, and they needed money. They knew that directly contacting their parents would not result in success, so they choreographed this whole charade. Thing is, she ran out of patience for me and blew it with them. Hell, they might even get divorced over it, and I would be so happy if that happens. My uncle is still brown-nosing his parents, trying to get them to give him money, and won't stop telling me clean out my ears, as Megan had nothing whatsoever do with the way she acted towards me. He is, after all, their one and only son. He deserves a little help, gang. In Megan's case, however, she is handling things in a uniquely bizarre way. She has become extremely nasty to her parents and me, entirely comfortable bad-mouthing us online for whatever reason. Well, that only helps our cause, so hopefully she keeps it up. Pretty sure we'll get the restraining order based on crazy. I do not even know why she is fighting it because the other day, as she told me to my face that her request had nothing on mine. It will not matter as I am going away to college in the fall. Well, I doubt she will even go there since money is what he needs. No matter what happens, my mom and dad will always be there for me. Although, I really do not believe that going